I'm Orion DeFranco, and this is my research presentation for POS 301 Empirical Political Inquiry. In this presentation, I'm going to be examining the relationships between race, class, and voting behaviors to determine the extent to which racial and class solidarity impact how individuals vote. The political attitudes and behaviors of American citizens are complex and often affected by a plethora of demographic factors. As the United States has witnessed a widening income gap over the last few decades, the intersections of race and class have further complicated the discussion among political scientists and other interested parties in what motivates Americans of different demographic groups to vote, as well as what to vote for. Because of this, there is an opening for research on what the effect of racial and class inequalities and divisions are on the democratic process. So firstly, we will address the gap in existing literature. The first article examined is Green and McElwee's report on the roles of local economic conditions and racial attitudes on the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The authors suggest that the prevailing narratives regarding these variables are oversimplified, and their findings assert that while poor economic conditions coupled with racial animosity were likely to cause white voters to vote for Trump, these variables made it more likely that minority voters would choose not to vote at all. Altogether, they determined that racial animosity was a significant driver for white Trump voters. Mutz, on the other hand, examines the same election results from a different lens, that of status and status threats. She finds that while party affiliation remains a particularly strong indicator of voting patterns, there was also a significant role for threats to one's quote-unquote racial or global status in leading white individuals to vote Republican. This leaves us with the opportunity to expand upon these findings and to take a more in-depth approach to examining how race, class, and racial and class attitudes impact whether a person chooses to vote and who or what they choose to vote for. My two hypotheses are that diversity of voting preferences between wealthy and non-wealthy whites is greater than that between wealthy and non-wealthy people of color, and that diversity of voting preferences among wealthy whites is greater than that among wealthy people of color. The method being used to conduct this research will be a quantitative analysis, using a nomothetic approach so that a large base of data may be utilized to examine broad trends in voting behavior. This will also provide for a credible sample with which to form conclusions. Used by Green and McElwee as well as Mutz in their research, this is a logical method given the large scale of the data being analyzed. In order to operationalize the concepts being discussed, variables such as race, income, racial and class attitudes, voting behavior, and voting preferences will be defined and determined based on extant data and coded. In order to analyze the acquired data, the method of path analysis will be utilized. This method allows for the identification and measurement of relationships between the independent variable, race, intervening variables, income, racial attitudes, and class attitudes, and dependent variable of voting behavior. By using path analysis, I will be able to compare the impact that income and racial attitudes have on voting preferences among communities of color with the impact that these same variables have on white voters, as well as provide context based on the intervening variables for why the results may differ. And here is my bibliography, and thank you for watching.